Take the Leap is the podcast where we get real about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship and life. Sure, some folks make running a business look like a walk in the park, but let's be honest, it's more like a wild ride through a theme park with a lot of unexpected twists and turns.
Join us, your co-hosts, Ashlan
and Tory,
as we spill the beans on our own real-life experiences and shine a spotlight on some amazing guests. From the highs of success stories to the lows of epic failures. And hey, we'll even throw in some cringe-worthy, laugh-out-loud, embarrassing moments for good measure.
So buckle up and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday for a dose of raw, unfiltered truth about what it's really like to chase your dreams and build a business.
Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the startup world, we've got something for everyone, even if it's just to make you think, wow, I'm glad I didn't do what they did.
This week, we are so excited to have our guest on, Tracey Lam. Tracey is a consultant and facilitator who focuses on strategic communications, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and leadership development. She has more than 20 years of experience working at the intersection of communications and DEI. Tracey currently serves as the Equity Program Manager for the Planning, Development, and Research Department at Metro. Past employers include Partners in Diversity, OHSU, Center for Diversity and Inclusion, Make-A-Wish Oregon, and K2 TV. Tracey enjoys giving back to her community in a variety of ways. In 2014, she co-founded API Forward, a nonprofit dedicated to the education, leadership development, and advancement of Asian and Pacific Islanders. Currently, community service works include Oregon Public Broadcasting Community Advisory Board, Public Relations Society of America, the Oregon chapter, and the Asian Pacific American Chamber of Commerce of Oregon. Welcome to the podcast. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. It's great to see both of you.
We can kind of explain a little bit how we all know each other, but we've all met in various professional settings. Tracey, I was a part of PRSA for a little bit earlier on in my career, and I believe I met you for the first time then. And Ashley, how did you two meet?
It's been I don't know if it's through Partners in Diversity or was it through PRSA or AMA, I don't know, but I did volunteer with API Forward for their student project a couple of years ago, and so I really got to engage a lot with Tracey then. But yeah, we've just kind of been in the community together, and it's just so wonderful. I feel like we used to like run into each other all the time and be like, oh hi, and doing that work. So yeah, so really awesome to connect in this way again.
I love that. I love that about the
Absolutely,
Portland business community, especially. I feel like it's kind of just like a small town here. And I feel like at some point or another, you're going to run into people that you've already met in previous situations. So it's kind of fun. Well, Tracey, the way we normally start the podcast is we usually start by asking people what is their Take the Leap story and their journey, and their journey to entrepreneurship. However, you have a little bit of a different story to tell. So can you just tell us about what made you decide to start your own consulting business and what brought you back into currently working full time?
Yeah. Thank you so much again for having me. And I guess my part one really started June 2023 when I left my full-time job. I really enjoyed the work there, but I felt like it was time to move on. And I wanted to take some time off. So, working really hard throughout the pandemic, I really wanted to just chill and take some time off and give myself some time to think about where I want to go and what I want to do next. So I quit without having a job lined up. And it was the first time since high school that I didn't have a job. as an immigrant, I was raised on the importance of working hard in order to have that financial security, that stability, right? Because my parents came to the U.S., my family came to the U.S. with hardly anything, and so that sense of financial security was really important to them and to my family, and that was how I was raised. And so to be without a job was really unsettling at first, but I really had faith that something great would come along. And so I took a couple months off and just really, really dug deep and did some self reflection. And after taking the summer off, I launched my consulting business, working at the intersection of communications and DEI. So that's sort of like my chapter one, so to speak. And during this time, I really learned a couple things. I learned the kind of work that I wanted to do. And even so, during this time when I had off, I did apply for jobs and was just searching around casually in the usual spots. And I turned down a couple job offers because I saw this as an opportunity to do something different. And to that end, it was really liberating to learn to say no. Um, it's hard for I think many of us, me in particular, to say no. So that was really really important part of my growth during this time. And then up until now, much of my identity was really tied to my work and the type of job I held. And I'd learned during this time off that being productive, quote unquote, doesn't necessarily increase my personal worth. And so when I finally got this consulting business up and running, I had this really new outlook and a different mindset going into this work. And I really enjoyed it. You know, my clients ranged from nonprofits to public agencies, and working as an independent consultant allowed me to use skills that I had but didn't get a chance to use, just because of my specific role I was in. And I also got to work with a variety of organizations and all sorts of really interesting projects. And then this leads me to kind of part two of my Take the Leap story, my chapter two, if you will, which Tori, you alluded to, going back into a full-time job. Though I enjoyed the work and I really liked my clients, I really felt ungrounded. I've always been a very mission-driven person and felt like I needed work that aligned with my values. And so I needed I needed a mission. I needed something like a team, so to speak, and to be able to see this direct impact. And working as an independent consultant, at times I really felt like, I don't know, to use a really corny analogy, a leaf in the wind. I was just floating around from, one job to the next, one client to the next. But serendipitously, a friend sent me a link to an opportunity for a, quote, regular full-time job. And it was a equity program manager at Metro with no official role in communications. So it was my really first time looking at what would that look like not doing anything in comms. I was hesitant at first, but decided to take that leap. And so here I am.
That's incredible. That's such a great story. And I love how you were so self-aware. Like, you took that time after working for so long, after a little bit of burnout, and, you started your own company, started consulting, and you were like, I'm learning something about myself, and I'm going to make some changes because of that. I love that. I feel like, if we're not learning, then what's the point? So I love that. That's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think I would have known that about what I needed in work had I not left work and gone into independent consulting. And then now I realize, okay, wow, like I said, I enjoyed my work, I enjoyed my clients, but I needed a quote unquote home.
That's so powerful because I do sometimes feel like, you can go from client to clients, or, Tori and I have both had like client attrition before. And it does, especially if it's like somebody large or somebody, that you've been working with for a long time, finding something to replace that, or feeling, like you said, that groundedness is really, really important too.
And I think to your point, sometimes we don't know exactly what it is that we want until we experience it and we go through it and we learn from that. I feel like a lot of people jump into decisions, whether it's a new career or entrepreneurship or whatever, without you know really kind of thinking about it, because they're really unhappy or they're burnt out and they kind of want something to replace that. And then they get into it and realize that it's just not for them, or maybe it is for them but needs adjustments. And I think it's just really important to be self-reflective like that, because the whole point of life is, you only get one in theory, so you want to be happy, right? And you want to live life the way that you want to live it, and whatever that looks like to you, you know you should find that. So yeah, that's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, 100%. As I was reflecting, would I have been successful as an independent consultant? Probably. Could I have been effective in supporting the community? Yeah, but would I have truly been happy doing it? I don't know. I feel like I can make a living doing independent consulting and just be perfectly fine, but I really wanted to feel like I was making a deeper impact and a direct impact. So yeah.
I love that.
You had talked about maybe making an impact as a consultant. What piece of advice would you have given yourself when you were thinking about starting your business to maybe change the outcome? Or do you think it would have changed the outcome of like staying in business or choosing to go back? Or I guess another part of that question is, was it truly the position and this opportunity to do something different? Like you said, it doesn't have comms work involved in it. And I know that could be, Tori and I both know communications works can be really get you really burnt out, because it's often you're in charge of so much different. So yeah, sorry, I feel like that was a multi-layered question, but would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll take I'll start off with the first portion of the question
Sure.
about advice, and it's a really interesting question, and because I feel like the lessons I learned, whether it was good or bad, I had to learn them in my own way and when the time was right. So, in this hypothetical situation, if my future self gave advice to my past self, I might not have learned those lessons, right?
Mm.
Like maybe I would have avoided it or wouldn't have taken certain risks or would have done something differently. And as a result, my path would have been completely different because I never learned those lessons. And um, so I guess like I wouldn't give myself any advice. I would just let me make those choices and make those mistakes so that I could receive those lessons and receive the input, um, regardless was good or bad. And so I think I would just let me take that journey that I was meant to take without any heads up. I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
No, I love that you talk about them being lessons, as opposed to, like, a lot of people get like a fear of failure or feel a fear of, bad things happen. But yeah, like you said, like having lessons and being able to learn as you map that out is so, so important in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and it was, it was scary and exciting at the same time, and I had a really good community who helped me. Before I launched my own business, I talked to a lot of people, learned from them, and they were so generous with their support and their help. And so, for that, those are lessons learned too that I wouldn't have known had I not taken that route, right? And so I'm absolutely grateful for this opportunity to be an entrepreneur. Now I'm still an entrepreneur, just kind of, on a smaller scale, like part-time. And those are but the lessons that I have learned will stay with me full-time.
I love that. And that's also a really good thing to point out is not everybody who starts their business goes into it full time forever, right? Like some people want a side hustle and they just want to keep it at that. Some people like you go into it full time and then decide they want to do something else full time, but they're still kind of in it. And then some people just go in it full time and stay in it full time forever. And, there's not one way of living. There's not one way of doing things, and everybody has their own path. So it's just important to remember that. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I may go back to full-time entrepreneurship at some point, and that'll always be there, I think.
Yeah. And you now know too, I think there's also like that confidence building. You now know I can do this. I did this, so if you ever want to go back into that space full time too, you have that to kind of rely on. That's great. Well, that kind of leads me up to the third and final question before we get into our hot seat questions. And so my last question for you before we start that is, what is your why? Why do you do what you do? What is your why?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And this is going to sound strange, but I'm a self-acknowledged pathological people pleaser, which I am actively trying to change and find balance. But the upside to that is that it has affected my career choices. So I seek jobs and opportunities where I can help, where I can have a positive impact on communities. And so I think that's really my why, is to be able to help communities and have a positive impact. And I think I have exemplified that throughout my career and in the organizations that I have chosen to support and or participate in. And so there's an upside to being a people pleaser.
It's not always necessarily a bad thing, but I love how did you say that? You said, I'm a self-imposed pathological.
Yes, self-acknowledged pathological people pleaser.
I love that.
That's right. It's a self-diagnosis.
I think there are a lot of people who are in that same boat who could really benefit from hearing that. That's so funny.
Yeah, just looking on the bright side. I'm working on finding balance, but I think that has influenced the work that I do, and I think that's great. That's okay.
Absolutely okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that just kind of makes you part of who you are. All right.
Awesome.
Ashlyn, I think your questions first. Are we going into the hot seat? They're not really hot. They're not hot questions. What did we say earlier? They're mild questions. They're warm.
They're
questions.
mild questions. Yeah. Well, yeah, your last comment and your why kind of leads perfectly into this one, because honestly, Tracey, you inspire me with the fact that you spend time volunteering and you've been involved with organizations and community service outside of your quote unquote day job, day work, and even co-founded a nonprofit. So I would love if you would share with our audience about those experiences and how they have really shaped your work and your life and your journey to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so starting a nonprofit is not unlike starting a business. There are definitely some legal structures that have to be done. Also, there's that business side of things, and then there's definitely the people side of things, right? Like building a board is kind of like building your staff if you have one, or building your client. And so there's definitely a lot of connections there. And then, just like in business, you create a mission, vision, and strategy with nonprofit and with business. So there's definitely a lot of cross connections with that. Knowing that I have made some mark on the community, and in the case of API Forward, hopefully a little bit of legacy in the community, and knowing that that I have hopefully done some good work, or at least even affected one person, right? And I use this analogy a lot when you are sailing and you're on the water. Even if you make a 1 degree adjustment to your course, over the course of that journey, it will be a really dramatic change in trajectory. And so, even a 1 degree change, even if that's one person I'm able to help over the course of time, hopefully there will be a great impact and that we can change the course of society and trajectory. So, that's kind of how I see volunteering.
That's so beautiful. I love that.
I love, yeah, that's such a great analogy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to go a completely different direction with my next question for you. I like to ask this one because we've just gotten some really great answers from it. But what is the best and or worst advice that you've received in your career? It could be unsolicited or solicited.
Hmm. So I've been thinking about this the last couple months since I left my previous job. We always get the advice to not burn bridges. That seems like a logical thing, but I have learned over the last couple years that sometimes you do need to burn a bridge,
Oh my gosh.
especially if the destination that that bridge takes you to is not a good place and is a toxic environment. That I think it's okay to burn that bridge down, and but save some material for rebuilding. But I think sometimes you do need to burn the bridge.
Sometimes you just need to burn the bridge. I want to just write that everywhere.
Like, put it on a bumper sticker if you want.
I love that. It's so true, though. And I think, kind of going back to what you said about being a pathological people pleaser, I definitely relate to that statement, which is why I love that so much. I feel like there's just so many situations that, at least in my work life, that I have found myself just like, letting people walk all over my boundaries or doing something because I was told that I shouldn't burn this bridge or I should remain professional in this situation or, whatever it is. And so I'm doing things because I feel like that's the right thing to do or that's what I should be doing, at the expense of my mental health, my happiness, my career, and I feel like, yeah, we don't always have to just, be polite or whatever it is. I'm not suggesting that you should be like literally go in and burn down a bridge, but maybe like, sometimes you just need to burn those bridges. And I love that. I love that. I will be making a bumper sticker. I'll put it on my mirror.
Make
Yeah,
you
I
one
will.
too.
I will. It'll have flames in the background and then I love that. That's great.
Tracey, you have a diverse array of work experiences. Can you tell us why you chose focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion and their intersection with communications and why that was important for you to do that type of work in your career?
Yeah, thank you. So my background has been in communications. I majored in journalism in college and worked 15 years in TV news before leaving TV news to go into public relations. And that in itself, of course, is a natural, I guess, transition from news to PR. Um, Equity work was really by accident at first. Being a woman of color in television news at that time, I was one of the few in the newsroom. And so I guess by default, I was doing this work. I was part of the Asian American Journalists Association and helping recruit people of color to go into journalism. And so ended up doing equity work just like I said as an accident. And it eventually became something that I was really passionate about. And after Channel 2 News, I went to Make-A-Wish, Oregon. After Make-A-Wish, Oregon, I got a job at OHSU Center for Diversity and Inclusion, which was the first time that I really mixed both communications and DEI together. Because when I was at OHSU, it was a communications position within the Center for Diversity and Inclusion. And so that was an opportunity for me to bring my communication skill set in something that I'm passionate in, which is equity work. And so it was really at that moment where I felt like I was able to marry those two together in a way that was making an impact, especially in terms of health equity and trying to improve health outcomes for our communities. And that was when I really realized the important role that communications can play in equity work. And so really leaned into that while I was at OHSU. And, as communicators, you all know that, we do a lot of strategic planning, and in equity work, very similar type of strategic planning is needed in order to have, you need a plan, you need actions, you need measurement. So all those things that we are taught in communications can be applied in equity work, and then understanding the audience. So the people element of it is also translatable between communications and equity work. And so that all kind of came together really nicely at OHSU. And then after that, I worked in Partners in Diversity, which also allowed me to combine those two together. So that's kind of how it all started.
Awesome.
That's really cool. I love that. Kind of jumping back to different topic. I guess what is one of the most like challenging and rewarding projects that you've worked on so far in your career?
Ooh. It's not so much a project, but I think API Forward was both challenging and rewarding. Starting a nonprofit from scratch. Well, we were all unpaid volunteers, so doing this on the side and building something from scratch was challenging and rewarding. And over the course of years, we've been able to support quite a few. I don't remember the numbers now off the top of my head, but how many students we've been able to support and help in their leadership development, and seeing those students now out in the workforce on their LinkedIn page, showing what they're doing, all the cool things they're doing, and then seeing them recently at an API Forward gala just really makes my heart warm that they are doing well, and I'm really grateful, and it's very fulfilling. So I would say that was both challenging because it was a lot of work and stressful and frustrating at times. At the same time, just seeing the students succeed, it was really worth it.
That's incredible. That's so cool. I love that.
Yeah, it was so fun working with the students on the project, and like having regular meetings with them, and mentoring them, and helping give them like permission, to explore different things, and advocate, for themselves and what they wanted to learn was super, super cool. So I'm glad I got to be involved with API Forward in that way a couple of years ago.
And seeing the projects get implemented too.
Yeah, I just saw something from Home Forward on LinkedIn because I follow them now. Some of the work that happened there as well. Well, since we are talking about API Forward, I would love if you can share like how your identity, as being Asian and as being a woman has really impacted your journey in your life, and what you would maybe share with folks who potentially like hold themselves back, or might feel that they can't do certain things out there because of their identities as well.
So I came here as an immigrant really young in 1980, at a time when there weren't a ton of resources for immigrants. And my parents thankfully had some friends who were willing to help them. Um, and so I think that really affected the way I saw the world, and um, that aren't, even when you can't access certain resources, there are people out there who can help. And I think it's important to acknowledge that you can reach out and ask for that help. And then you don't have to do this alone. And there are people out there who are willing to step up. And then the second part of your question was, the people who feeling like they can't do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A little bit of like imposter syndrome of, like your identity bars you from being able to move forward in any direction.
I was just reflecting on this idea of imposter syndrome, and it's, I think everyone feels it at some point, especially women of color. I definitely have felt it in different spaces. At the same time, as I get older and hopefully wiser, I almost see it as a way to challenge myself, that there are incredibly smart people in the room, and how can I leverage their brains to help me improve. And so you can get over the scariness, get over the imposter part, and just realize that there are really smart people in this room, and you are one of them. So use them to help you grow and challenge yourself to get better. So I was just actually reflecting on that recently, and that in this equity work, even though I've been doing it for a little while, I still have a lot to learn. And I've met people at Metro who are incredibly brilliant, that sometimes I feel like, gosh, what am I doing here? But they're like, wait, no, I can learn from them. I'm on a different part of the journey than they are, and I can challenge myself to become better. So that's kind of how I would see that.
That's such an incredible,
I
powerful way to answer that. I feel like, it's almost like a mind shift of taking this thing that everybody probably feels at some point in time and saying, okay, but you can use this to your advantage, instead of making it you back. I think, definitely have experienced imposter syndrome, and I'm going to have to use that trick next time I'm feeling that way, because you're right. It's true.
Yeah. And I love what you shared about like reaching out and having a community. I do think a lot of people, especially in, like our American culture, that this idea of you have to go it alone or you have to make your way. I think, leaning on the community and being an active part of the community and embracing being, with and among each other is so, so important. I mean, it's part of the reason that Tori and I are doing this podcast and these interviews, is to just show the difference and the variety and the diversity of experience that's in our community, and bring a place and a space where people can feel included and can belong to something that they don't need to, when you go into entrepreneurship, it doesn't need to feel scary or isolating. You can, get help, ask for advice. Like you had shared earlier that, you had talked to so many different folks. Like I do think that there are resources and people out there. You just kind of have to find the folks that you want to be in community with.
Exactly. Yeah. And with technology these days, it is easier, I think, to find that community. Just LinkedIn alone, you can connect with lots of folks, and and reach out directly and ask for a coffee date to connect and learn from them. And then there are organizations, like SCORE or SBA, those organizations, if you need to know a little more of the technical aspects of things. Absolutely. And then just one quick side story. The reason why I got into journalism was because I saw the power of news bringing communities together.
Yeah.
And that when I mentioned that we came to the U.S. in 1980, and it was in March when we came. 2 months later, in May, Mount St. Helens erupted.
Oh, wow.
And I remember watching TV with all the ash that were falling, and I saw all of the people coming out of their homes and helping each other out, and cleaning up the streets, the yards of ash and all the debris. And then I looked outside my window, and that was also happening in my neighborhood. And so I saw that really powerful moment of the community coming together. And I saw that reflected on TV. And so kind of like to your point about, community coming together and helping and supporting each other, that's really why I got into journalism.
That's so cool. And really, when you think about it, we don't have to wait for something bad to happen, like a mountain to erupt, to be in a community, right? Like, what I feel like we were kind of at the end of a generation that was taught that, you should be in competition with one another, whether it's with your classmates or with other businesses or whatever. And Ashlan and I really hate that concept. And, we love collaborating with other people who are also in marketing, because we learn from each other and we can build this community with each other. And I love how society's kind of starting to shift back to that, because I feel like community just in general is just missing from so much. And if we could find a way to get back to that, that would be incredible. But let's not wait for a mountain to blow.
Yeah. That's true. 100%.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Well, we are so happy that you're here today. Thank you so much for having this conversation with us. Before we kind of wrap it up a little bit, do you have anything in particular that you want to talk about, that you want to share with our audience, that you want to plug? And also, is there, how can we find you? How can people follow you?
No, I'm just really appreciative of Tory and Ashlan for providing this space. I think it's incredible to talk about entrepreneurship and just overcoming some adversity. So thank you so much for this space. And I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We're so happy. This is such a great conversation.
Yes, thank you so much, Tracey.
Thank you. And it's so good to reconnect with you, Tori. I know it's been a long time.
Yes, absolutely.
So don't be a stranger.
I won't. For sure. All right. Well, we will see or talk to all of our listeners again next week. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Take the Leap podcast. We hope you found useful takeaways you can apply to your entrepreneurial journey. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and keep in touch and follow us on Instagram. If you have business questions, shoot us a direct message or leave us a comment. We'll try to cover it in an upcoming episode. And visit our website, taketheleap-today.com, for more resources like our online course that accompanies this podcast.